Before we crack open tonight's cursed can of content, I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and an extra sinister shout out to the loyal members of the Sinister Elite. You legends help keep the darkness alive. If you're enjoying the stories and want to take it a step further, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and consider joining the Sinister Elite by clicking that join button below. Members get access to creepy custom emojis and exclusive Sinister Elite badges that level up the longer you survive with us. It's like loyalty, but spookier. All right, lights off, headphones in, and let's summon something we'll all regret. The job posting said light maintenance on a historical property, which is how I ended up clocking in at a theme park that hasn't sold a funnel cake since the Bush administration. The sign at the entrance still says Sunset Kingdom in peeling gold letters, like a faded prom queen holding onto her sash. The ticket booths are chained, the midways full of brittle leaves and busted prizes, and the carousel horses are wrapped like mummies in yellowed plastic. My boss, a square-jawed man named Bentley who feels like he was born in a windbreaker, handed me a thermos and a laminated badge that unlocks exactly 3 doors and nothing else. We're here to keep the gears oiled, the scaffold safe, and the insurance satisfied, he said. We also follow the rules. OSHA? I asked, trying to sound professional while my steel-toe boots squeaked like clown shoes. Bentley pointed to the maintenance shed near the old bumper cars. If the shed had a smell, it would be called Dust Despair with notes of mouse. Inside, pegboard tools, hanged extension cords, a map of the park, and taped to the breaker box, a sheet titled Operational Night Protocol in a font that screamed, "Printed by someone who hates you." 5 rules. I read them, then read them again, because they were absolutely not OSHA. Rule 1. Never energize more than 1 zone at a time. The park will try to convince you otherwise. Rule 2. Do not enter the carousel ring after 2:03 a.m. Count the horses before and after. If you reach 13, kill power and back away. Rule 3. If an animatronic waves first, do not wave back. Continue your task without acknowledging it. Rule 4. Ignore your name if you hear it on the PA. We did not page you. Rule 5. If you hear music with no visible speaker, do not look for the source. Leave the zone, lock the gate, and wait 10 minutes. I waited for the punchline. Bentley waited for me to stop waiting. These are quirky, I said, like the owner was a crypt keeper with a copier. Owner's dead, Bentley said. Died in the park, actually. Heart attack during a reunion night when the carousel wouldn't stop. He scratched his chin as if deciding whether this was an HR-safe anecdote. You'll get used to it. I asked the obvious. Why do we even power anything on? Lubrication cycles, he said. If things sit too long, they seize. We run a zone, let it tick, power it down. Basic preventative. We keep it from dying completely. And the rules? He met my eyes. We keep us from dying completely. Then he slapped my shoulder like we were on a softball team and not in a mausoleum for roller coasters. Start with Zone C. Boardwalk, games, carousel perimeter. 10 minutes of power. No heroics. He left me with the breaker keys, a flashlight, and the song of cicadas sawing through the dark. I stood outside the shed, looking down the midway. Banners drooped like tired tongues. The Sea Serpent coaster's green track curved against the stars, its train parked and chained at the base like a dog that might remember how to run. A faded cutout of a pirate pointed at a treasure map, or possibly at me, depending on your level of superstition. Light maintenance, I said to nobody, and unlocked Zone C. The switch thunked. Somewhere distant, electricity cheered like a small crowd. The midway bulbs flared, some bright, some sickly, some giving up entirely. The speaker poles emitted a polite hiss, then sizzled out, and the whirring, creaking symphony of motors waking stirred the night. I kept it funny for the first 5 minutes because that's my coping mechanism. I narrated like a YouTube vlogger no one watches. Welcome back to Justin Fixes the Horror Park. Today we're lubing bearings and pretending the carousel didn't just breathe. Because I swear, as the lights rose, the plastic-wrapped horses seemed to exhale. The tarps lifted a fraction, then settled, as if something underneath had let go of a long-held sigh. I clicked my flashlight along the edge of the carousel ring, counting hooves through plastic. 12 horses. A menagerie frozen mid-gallop. No 13. Good. Still, my stomach did that elevator drop thing you get when a text from your ex appears and starts with, "We need to talk." Then, someone waved. I hadn't moved. My hands were in my jacket pockets. But at the far end of the midway, a robotic pirate on an unmoving ride cabin raised its arm in a slow, sticky salute. The animatronic was unplugged. I could see the frayed cord dangling like a tail. His jaw clacked once, twice, as if chewing words he couldn't swallow. Rule 3. Do not wave back. Continue your task. I am an obedient man when the consequences are labeled unknown. I bent to check a junction box like that was the only item on my to-do list for the rest of my life. I could feel the pirate's glass eyes grazing my shoulders like cold coins. His arm stayed up. I did not wave. I did not acknowledge. I trimmed a zip tie that didn't need trimming and prayed that counted as a task. Minutes crawled. The arm lowered by degrees, not with a motor's confidence, but with something learning the weight of itself again. When it finally thudded to its side, I let out air I didn't know I'd bronzed. "Okay," I whispered. That's one. Humor was fading from my bloodstream like sugar after a fair. The PA popped. A shiver ran down the wires. Then, bright and customer service cheery, a voice said, "Justin, please report to the carousel." I choked on nothing. Bentley had said they don't page me. More importantly, I hadn't told Bentley my name. Not yet. My badge said Temp Tech. Only my application had Justin on it, and I'd submitted that online 3 days ago to an HR portal that was definitely designed in 2003 by a man who believed buttons should look like pills. Rule 4. Ignore your name if you hear it on the PA. I ignored it. Which is to say, I stared into the middle distance with my jaw locked like a safe and tried to remember if I'd signed a life insurance policy. The voice repeated it, too bright, like a smile showing all its teeth. "Justin, please report to the carousel. You've left something inside." Inside what? The plastic? My lunch? My sanity? 10 minutes, I told myself. You just have to make 10 minutes. I turned to leave the ring, stepping backwards because turning my back on 12 duct-taped horses felt like handing out house keys to wolves. That's when I heard the music. Not the park's tinny calliope that I'd already deemed tolerable if ironic. This was cleaner, closer. A real carousel waltz, warm and round, the kind with bells that make your ribs vibrate. It came from no speaker I could see. It came from everywhere, like the night had pressed play. Rule 5. If you hear music with no visible speaker, do not look for the source. Leave the zone. Lock the gate. Wait 10 minutes. I did exactly that. Almost. Because halfway to the gate, the air chilled and the plastic wrappings rustled. The tarps lifted again and settled, but this time slower, synchronized, as if something beneath was inhaling to the tempo. The carousel platform shuddered. Wood whispered against wood. I smelled old paint and barn dust and a sweet, spoiled hint of cotton candy. And then, quiet as a secret, the horses moved. Not all at once. They swayed a fraction of an inch forward and back as if their poles had softened, and the whole platform remembered it was supposed to turn but had forgotten the how. The nearest horse's eye, lacquered and black, shone through a tear in the plastic. For a second, in the reflection, I thought I saw myself standing inside the ring. I blinked. The reflection blinked back a beat late. I didn't look for speakers. I didn't count again. I ran for the gate like a man late to his own survival. My hands fumbled the padlock while the waltz brightened, faster now, a music box winding tight. The PA snapped once more, sharp like a knuckle on wood, and the cheerful voice dropped the smile. "If you leave, we'll have to bring you back." The lock clicked open, metal skinned my knuckles, and I shoved through into the dark. I killed Zone C with a smack to the breaker. The lights went out like someone cut a vein. The music stopped mid-measure. The horses, if they had ever swayed, were funeral still again. I stood alone in the sudden silence, tasting copper and dust, listening to my pulse argue with my decisions. Then, from the far side of the park, deep in Zone A, which I definitely had not powered, came the ratchet clack of a coaster chain tugging something uphill, the kind of sound that lives in your childhood and your nightmares. The sea serpent was climbing. The clacking echoed through the park like a slow heartbeat, metal on metal, gears on ghosts, the kind of sound that tells your brain something mechanical is awake that shouldn't be. The sea serpent coaster had been rusting since before I was legal to drink, its cars chained at the bottom of the first hill, covered in bird crap and caution tape. The last recorded maintenance check? 2005. Yet here it was, hauling itself up the incline one click at a time like it had somewhere to be. "Zone A's dark," I whispered. "You're off duty, buddy." The park didn't care. I pulled my flashlight. Dead. My phone screen barely lit the cracked asphalt path as I followed the noise toward the coaster. The air smelled different here. Ozone, burnt metal, and something underneath, faint and sweet, like cheap perfume and funnel cake grease. When I reached the loading platform, every hair on my neck saluted. The control booth lights flickered on briefly, casting a glow over the rusted rails. The ride's chain kept pulling, ratcheting upward, though no power should exist here. I glanced toward the breaker panel on the platform wall. The lock was still sealed. That meant Zone A wasn't just on, it was possessed. I climbed halfway up the stairs, careful not to spook the rotted planks. From this angle, I could see the lead car cresting the hill. Empty seats, safety bars locked. But as the chain reached its final click, the car didn't drop. It just sat there, balanced perfectly on the peak. Then it started rolling backward, slow at first, then faster. The whole track groaned in protest. The cars slammed into the next set of brakes with a sound like thunder in a coffin. Sparks flared down the track. I ducked behind a railing, hard in overdrive. Bentley's voice crackled from my walkie. "You powered A, didn't you?" I clicked it on. "Negative. Only Zone C." A long pause. Then you need to leave. Now. It's starting early. What's starting early? But all I got was static. I peeked again. The train had stopped, dead center on the track. A light above the loop flashed green once, then twice. Then the old speakers mounted to the posts squealed with feedback. A distorted voice crawled out, the kind that sounds like a recording replayed through 30 years of rust. "Riders, keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times." The coaster lurched forward. I swear I could see weight pressing the seats down, indentations forming where no bodies sat. As it rolled past the station, the lap bars clamped down with loud clicks, one after another, sealing invisible riders inside. I stumbled backward, tripping over a pile of old soda cups. Nope, nope, nope. The sea serpent hit the loop, full speed. The rust screamed, bolts rained down, and something, not metal, shrieked back. The cars blurred past, a streak of motion and wind that knocked my cap off. When it passed the station again, the cars weren't empty anymore. They were filled with people. Not real people. Shadows shaped like them. Outlines. Faces I could almost see if I didn't look straight at them. Mouths wide open, like they were mid-laugh or mid-scream. As the coaster roared by, one of them turned its head. Not the way a head should turn. It twisted full around, like a puppet with a loose screw, and I saw eyes reflecting yellow in the strobe of the dying lights. I ran, back toward the midway, back to the shed. My boots slapped against the cracked pavement, echoing off the old prize stands. The voice on the PA followed, still chipper. "Thank you for riding the sea serpent. Please exit safely through the gift shop." Except there was no gift shop, just boarded doors and dust. The breaker shed loomed ahead, glowing faintly from a single flickering bulb. I yanked it open and slammed the main switch down again for good measure. Everything went black. For a second, silence. Then, footsteps. Not heavy ones. Slow, dragging, wet-sounding. Coming from behind me, near the tilt-a-whirl. I froze, breath shallow. The bulb flickered, dimmed, flared again. A figure was standing at the edge of the midway, too tall. Shoulders too broad. Wearing what looked like an old mascot suit. Something reptilian and sun-faded. I could make out the word Serpy stitched across its chest. The park's old mascot. The head of the costume hung sideways, one glass eye cracked. It raised an arm, slowly, like it hadn't done it in years, and pointed at me. My radio hissed again. Bentley's voice, faint this time. Rule 6. Don't look at the mascots after dark. I didn't remember there being a Rule 6. I turned the key to lock the shed and sprinted toward the employee gate. Every motion light I passed blinked out right after I crossed under it, like the darkness was chasing me. When I reached the gate, I jammed my keycard. Red light. Tried again. Red. Again. Red. Then the PA came on one last time. The park closes at dawn. Please stay and enjoy the show. Behind me, the lights on the Ferris wheel flickered on one by one, forming a giant glowing grin across the night sky. And something inside that mascot suit laughed, a low, rattling wheeze that sounded like air escaping a deflated balloon. The clacking echoed through the park like a slow heartbeat. Metal on metal, gears on ghosts. The kind of sound that tells your brain something mechanical is awake that shouldn't be. The Sea Serpent coaster had been rusting since before I was legal to drink. Its cars chained at the bottom of the first hill, covered in bird crap and caution tape. The last recorded maintenance check? 2005. Yet here it was, hauling itself up the incline one click at a time like it had somewhere to be. Zone A's dark, I whispered. You're off duty, buddy. The park didn't care. I pulled my flashlight. Dead. My phone screen barely lit the cracked asphalt as I followed the noise. The air smelled different here. Ozone, burnt metal, and something faintly sweet. Like cheap perfume and funnel cake grease. When I reached the loading platform, every hair on my neck saluted. The control booth lights flickered on, briefly, casting a glow over the rusted rails. The ride's chain kept pulling, though no power should exist. The lock on the breaker panel was still sealed. Zone A wasn't powered. It was possessed. I climbed halfway up the stairs, careful not to spook the rotted planks. From this angle, I could see the lead car cresting the hill. Empty seats, safety bars locked. Then it started rolling backward, slow at first, then faster. The whole track groaned. Sparks flared down the rails. Bentley's voice crackled from my walkie. You powered A, didn't you? Negative. Only Zone C. A long pause. Then leave. Now. It's starting early. What's starting early? Static. The train stopped mid-track. A light above the loop flashed green twice. The ancient speakers squealed with feedback. Riders, keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. The coaster lurched forward. I swear I could see weight pressing the seats down, indentations forming where no bodies sat. As it rolled past the station, the lap bars clamped down with loud clicks. The Sea Serpent hit the loop, full speed. Rust screamed, bolts rained down, and something, not metal, shrieked back. When it passed the station again, the cars weren't empty anymore. They were filled with people. Not real people, shadows shaped like them. Faces I could almost see if I didn't look straight at them. Mouths wide open, either mid-laugh or mid-scream. As the coaster roared by, one of them turned its head. The motion was wrong, too far, too loose, and eyes reflected yellow in the strobe of the dying lights. I ran, back toward the midway, back to the shed. My boots slapped against cracked pavement. The PA followed, still chipper. Thank you for riding the Sea Serpent. Please exit safely through the gift shop. There was no gift shop, just boarded doors and dust. The breaker shed glowed from a single flickering bulb. I yanked it open and slammed the main switch down. Everything went black. For a second, silence. Then, footsteps. Slow, dragging, wet-sounding. Coming from behind me, near the tilt-a-whirl. A figure stood at the edge of the midway. Too tall, shoulders too broad, wearing what looked like an old mascot suit, something reptilian and sun-faded. I could make out the word Serpy stitched across its chest. The park's old mascot. The head of the costume hung sideways, one glass eye cracked. It raised an arm, slowly, and pointed at me. My radio hissed again. Bentley's voice, faint. Rule 6, don't look at the mascots after dark. I didn't remember there being a Rule 6. I turned the key to lock the shed and sprinted toward the employee gate. Every motion light blinked out after I passed under it, like the darkness was chasing me. At the gate, I jammed my key card. Red light. Again. Red. Then, the PA came on one last time. The park closes at dawn. Please stay and enjoy the show. Behind me, the Ferris wheel bulbs flickered on one by one, forming a giant glowing grin across the night sky. And somewhere inside that mascot suit, something laughed, a low rattling wheeze that sounded like air escaping a deflated balloon. The laughter faded into the wind, leaving only the creak of the Ferris wheel spinning on its own. I backed against the chain-link gate, yanking my keycard like it owed me money. Red light, red light, red light. I was trapped inside Sunset Kingdom, and the dead were clocking in. The Ferris wheel completed one slow rotation, lights forming a pattern that didn't match its old logo. A grinning serpent looped around a crown. The serpent's tongue blinked in neon red, pointing toward the park's center courtyard. My walkie buzzed with a wall of static. Then Bentley's voice, broken and breathless. If you're still alive, get to the maintenance tunnel. Now. They're walking. Who's walking? I asked, but he'd already cut out. I started toward the courtyard, past the frozen food stands and moldy balloon prizes. The ground shook lightly under my boots, like footsteps, but too heavy, too synchronized. Then the calliope music started again, faint and distorted, echoing from every direction. It was the parade theme, the one they used to blast at dusk, right before the fireworks. I'd heard it in old commercials, cheerful and brassy. But tonight it was slow, warped, dragging through half speed like a vinyl dying on the turntable of hell. I ducked behind a popcorn stand and peeked toward Main Street. Figures were moving in the distance. Dozens of them. They emerged from storefronts, rides, and shadows. Mascots, performers, employees frozen in old uniforms, guests in faded 90s clothes with glowing eyes like dying embers. They marched down the cracked road in perfect formation, silent except for the shuffle of feet and the metallic hiss of the Ferris wheel turning above them. Each one carried something different. A balloon, a rusted wrench, a half-eaten churro, a child's stuffed toy that twitched like it was alive. And leading them all was Serpy. His costume had straightened itself somehow. The head sat correctly now, glass eyes glowing faint yellow, a painted smile cracked wider than before. He was holding a flag that said, Sunset Kingdom, open forever. My breath hitched. Forever. I crouched lower. I could feel the music pulsing in my ribs, like it wasn't just sound, it was heartbeat. The longer I listened, the more the rhythm started syncing with mine. That's when I remembered Rule 5. If you hear music with no visible speaker, do not look for the source. Leave the zone, lock the gate, and wait 10 minutes. Except there were no gates left to lock, and I couldn't exactly leave the zone without getting trampled by a walking nightmare parade. The crowd reached the carousel. They stopped. Every figure turned in unison toward the horses still wrapped in plastic. Then Serpy lifted his hand and snapped his 3-fingered foam claws. The carousel unwrapped itself. The plastic sheeting shredded, caught in an invisible wind. The horses gleamed. Fresh paint, wet eyes, slick manes, as if they'd been restored mid-spin. The motor hummed. The lights ignited. And then it began to turn. The parade stepped closer. One by one, The figures climbed aboard the carousel. Each mounted a horse, gripping reins, leaning forward, faces expressionless. The carousel spun faster, faster, until the shapes blurred together in a whirl of motion and light. The Ferris wheel stopped. Every light in the park flickered once. Then, from inside the carousel, a voice boomed across the park's speaker system, distorted, old, full of feedback and fury. "We're open for business, Bentley. Come collect your wages." Bentley's voice hit my walkie immediately. "Get inside the tunnel now, Justin. Now." I bolted, past the photo booth, through the cracked gates, down into the old maintenance tunnel entrance near the bumper cars. The steel door was half open, light flickering inside. Bentley was waiting at the bottom of the stairs with a shotgun slung over his shoulder, wearing the same windbreaker, but he looked wrong. His skin was pale gray like ash, eyes ringed with sleepless black. He aimed the gun at the stairwell behind me. "Did it see you?" What? The mascot?" He nodded slowly. "Then we don't have long." He slammed the steel door shut. The lock twisted 3 times. Above us, the ground rumbled. The calliope music warped again, echoing through the pipes. Bentley dragged a crate across the floor and sat down, breathing hard. "You shouldn't have powered Zone C. That's how it starts every year." I blinked. "Every year?" He stared at me, eyes glassy. "This isn't maintenance. It's containment. We keep the park asleep. But it always wakes hungry." I felt cold crawl up my spine. "Why keep it open at all?" "Because it owns the land," he said quietly. "The owner made a deal. Sunset Kingdom isn't built on a graveyard. It is one a crash shook the tunnel. Dust rained from the ceiling. Bentley stood loading shells. "They found us." The PA overhead crackled, and the same syrupy voice that had paged me earlier whispered through the vents. "Justin, report to the carousel. Your shift isn't over." The tunnel lights flickered, then cut out entirely. Bentley's flashlight snapped on. He looked straight at me. "Whatever happens next," he said, "don't look it in the eyes." Something began dragging its claws down the metal door above us. The metal door above us screamed as claws dragged down its face, leaving long, curling gashes through the steel. Bentley raised the shotgun toward the ceiling and didn't blink. "Whatever you do," he said again, quieter now, "don't look it in the eyes." Something on the other side laughed. A slow, dragging sound like gravel being sucked through a drain. Then the lights in the tunnel flickered, once, twice, and died. For a moment the world became pitch black. Then I heard Bentley move, boots scraping concrete, and a click as his flashlight beam sliced through the dark. The stairwell door bulged inward. Once, twice. The hinges screamed. I took a step back. "That's not gonna hold." He gave me a grin that didn't match the situation. "It never does." With a sound like thunder cracking open a rib cage, the top half of the door bent inward and something slid through the gap. Slow, deliberate, scaly. The texture of wet vinyl over bone. A mascot glove. Except this glove had claws like carving knives poking through the seams. "Syrupy," Bentley said under his breath, almost fondly. "Still wearing your Sunday best." He fired. The blast turned the tunnel into a thunderclap. The glove withdrew, shrieking in stereo through the vents above us. Smoke filled the air, thick with the scent of gunpowder and burned rubber. "Come on," Bentley said. "He's not alone." He motioned toward a narrow passage that broke off from the main corridor. An old maintenance route lined with dusty breaker panels and pipes dripping condensation. I followed, staying close enough to taste the grit his boots kicked up. "You said this place is a graveyard," I said, half whispering. "What did you mean?" Bentley's flashlight beam wobbled over the tunnel walls. I saw carvings beneath the flaking paint, symbols, circular, drawn in red decades ago and now faded into rust stains. "It started as a burial ground in the late 1800s, he said. "The developer's family bought the land cheap. They promised to move the graves before construction." He stopped walking. They didn't. The tunnel groaned overhead, like the park itself was listening. They built over it. Every ride, every path, every food stall, they're all placed on top of headstones. And the first owner, Mr. Dunn, thought it'd be poetic. He called it the Kingdom of the Sunsets, a place where no one truly dies. I blinked through the haze. That's unbelievably stupid. Bentley almost smiled. Tell that to the shareholders. The park made millions before the first incident. Incident? The carousel, he said. It jammed mid-ride. Wouldn't stop spinning. The riders said they saw people in the mirrors, people buried under the ride, screaming to be let out. The lights went out for 3 minutes. When they came back on, every horse had a rider, but not the same ones. He said it like he'd been there. Before I could ask, a thud rolled down the tunnel. Something heavy, something crawling. Bentley killed the flashlight and whispered, "Don't move." We stood in pitch-dark silence. My breath came out in little shivers. Then I heard it, wet slaps against the concrete, the scrape of claws, the smell of damp soil. The sound moved slow, dragging as though the thing was pulling itself forward with arms that didn't quite bend right. A faint glow pulsed around the corner ahead. I risked a look. It wasn't a flashlight. It was a face. A hollow mascot head, Serpy's grinning face, rolling lazily across the floor, like a dropped basketball, its glass eyes burning green from within. It bumped into the wall, rolled to a stop at my feet, and grinned up at me. Then it spoke. "Smile for the guests, Justin." I bit my tongue to keep from screaming. Bentley grabbed the head by its rubber jaw and punted it down the hall. It hit something soft. The something growled. "Run," Bentley said. We took off down the corridor. The tunnel shook behind us. The growl became a roar, metallic, wet, hungry. We burst into a wider chamber filled with ancient machinery, rusted generators, broken ride motors, and a massive central column that pulsed with faint orange light. "This is the heart," Bentley said, "where the power never really dies." He pulled a crowbar from his belt and jammed it into a rusted switch box big enough to hold a coffin. Sparks flew. The lights flickered. For a moment, I saw what the column really was. A stack of bones and wires fused together, ribs twisted around cables, vertebrae spiraling upward like a corkscrew into the ceiling. "What the hell is that?" "The power source," Bentley said. "Dunn made sure the park stayed alive by giving it something to feed on. The rides, the guests, the workers, it all goes here." The ground trembled again, and a low groan rippled through the metal like it was breathing. I looked up. The ceiling was moving. Something enormous was pressing against it from above, pushing through the earth, deforming the metal like dough around a knuckle. A split opened down the center. 2 glass eyes stared through, the size of dinner plates. "Bentley." He didn't look up. "Don't make eye contact." The eyes blinked, slow and wrong. The pupils adjusted, focusing on me. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, deep from the pipes, a voice echoed. Layered, static-riddled, sounding like it came from every speaker at once. "We never close." The eyes widened. The ground cracked. Bentley grabbed me by the collar and yanked me toward another tunnel door. "Forget the rules. Run." We stumbled through the darkness as the floor gave way behind us. Machinery screamed. The mascot head's laughter followed, distorted and high-pitched, bouncing through the tunnel. I didn't look back. But just before the door slammed behind us, I swear I saw something climbing out of the hole. Something shaped like the park's logo. A giant serpent of bone and neon light, unfurling from beneath the rides. And somewhere above ground, the Ferris wheel began spinning again, fast enough to make the sky strobe red. The ground split open behind us like the park was exhaling fire. The serpent of bones and neon coiled upward through the rupture, scales flashing with carnival colors. Its mouth was a carousel, teeth made of horse legs and painted grins. Bentley yanked me down a side tunnel, half dragging, half sprinting. My lungs burned, my ears rang, and behind us came the thunder of everything waking up at once. The roller coaster screamed, the Ferris wheel roared like an engine from hell, and the PA system howled with laughter. We slammed through a door labeled Maintenance HQ. Bentley barricaded it with a filing cabinet and collapsed against the wall, coughing. "This isn't a park," I said, voice cracking. "It's a feeding pit." He nodded slowly, eyes wild. "And we're the buffet line." I looked around the room. It was filled with paperwork, old blueprints, and dozens of photographs. Maintenance crews from decades past, each group smiling the same fake smile. I noticed something chilling. Every photo had the same background, same tools, same pose, and the same man standing in the middle. "Bentley." "Hold up," I said, pointing. "That's you. That's you in all of these. From the 80s? He rubbed his temples. "I've had a lot of promotions." "No, man. That's not promotions. That's decades." He looked down at his hands. The skin was grayish, cracked like paint. "I tried to quit once. It doesn't let you what doesn't." "The kingdom," he said. "When the first owner died, his blood hit the power grid. It bound him, and everyone who kept the park running, to the park itself. Every time it reopens, it calls us back. We keep it fed. Or it comes looking outside. Something slammed into the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. You said you just maintain it." Bentley loaded another shell. "Yeah, by giving it what it wants, my stomach dropped." "You mean... people?" He didn't answer. I looked at the open logbook on the desk. It listed every employee from this season's hires. 5 names. Mine was last. 4 had red slashes through them. "Where are the others?" Bentley's silence told me everything. The door bent inward. A hand, too large, too rubbery, gripped the frame. Serpy's head forced its way through the gap, the rubber jaws flapping loosely as a voice purred through the vents. "Smile for the guests, Justin." "It's showtime," Bentley fired. The mascot reeled, shrieking, then disappeared down the hall. The lights pulsed red. The PA speakers crackled to life again. A syrupy carnival voice echoed through every vent. "Attention, valued employees! Please report to your stations. The midnight parade will begin shortly." Somewhere above us, I heard calliope music and the rumble of roller coasters. Bentley grabbed my arm. "We can't stop it, but we can end it." The power heart. You saw it down below. It's not a generator. It's a gate. If we cut its feed, we can bury the whole park before it fully opens. "Bury it how?" He grinned, eyes shining. "With everything in it." We bolted from the office. The tunnels glowed now, the walls pulsing with faint rhythmic light, like veins pumping electricity. Every step we took echoed back with whispers. "Stay forever." "One more ride." "Keep smiling." We reached the chamber again. The giant bone and wire column shuddered like it was alive, light bleeding from cracks in its surface. The serpent above ground screamed, rattling the steel. Bentley tossed me a wrench the size of a crowbar. "See that junction box? Rip the conduit out. Don't stop, no matter what you hear." He ran to the other side of the room, prying open the control panel. I hesitated, then jammed the wrench into the junction box. Sparks burst out, lighting the room like a thunderstorm. Instantly, the whispers got louder. Figures started crawling out of the vents. Park employees, mascots, guests, half-rotted, half-mechanical, eyes glowing from within. Their mouths moved in sync, chanting, "We never close. We never close. We never close." "Faster, Justin!" Bentley yelled. I ripped the conduit free. The lights flared white. The serpent above us roared in pain, its voice shaking the foundation. The floor cracked, the tunnel twisted, and the entire park screamed through the metal like a dying god. Then I saw Bentley. He wasn't running. He stood with both hands on the switch, looking right at me. His body was shaking apart, skin peeling like old paper. "Go," he said. "This place needs a manager." He pulled the lever. There was a flash brighter than lightning. The walls folded in on themselves. The serpent howled one last time before everything turned to white. I woke up in daylight. The park was gone. Just a crater of smoking soil and twisted rebar where Sunset Kingdom had stood. My clothes were burned. My badge melted into my chest. An ambulance siren wailed in the distance. A firefighter knelt beside me. "You're lucky, kid. They said this place caught fire decades ago." He helped me to my feet, then frowned. "You okay?" "You're smiling kinda weird." I touched my face. My mouth hurt. My lips wouldn't move. My cheeks were stiff, like rubber. Something flaked under my fingertips. Paint. And when I looked down at the ground, a mascot glove was lying beside me, fingers twitching. The wind carried a whisper from the crater. "The park opens at dusk." I should have been in a hospital. Instead, I was sitting in the back of an ambulance while 2 EMTs argued about whether the park had ever been there. Through the open doors, I could see smoke curling up from the crater where Sunset Kingdom had stood, turning the sky the color of old carnival tickets. One of the EMTs, a guy with slicked hair and tired eyes, checked my vitals. "Name?" "Justin." He looked down at his clipboard, frowned. "No ID. You work construction or something?" "Maintenance," I said automatically. "Night shift." That word maintenance made the back of my skull buzz. When he turned away, I caught my reflection in the ambulance window. My face looked stretched, like the skin didn't quite fit. The smile was stuck just slightly too wide. I pressed my fingers to my cheek. The skin gave under my thumb like rubber. "Hey," I said, trying to stand. "Where's the other guy who was with me?" "What other guy?" "The older one. Windbreaker. Shotgun. Attitude problem." "Bentley." The EMT blinked. "Sir, you were alone when we found you." I looked past him. Firefighters milled around the smoking pit, their boots crunching over melted asphalt. No sign of the maintenance tunnels. No sign of Bentley. No sign of anything but scorched ground. The EMT handed me a bottle of water. "You should get checked out downtown. Something like this can mess with your head." He left to talk to a firefighter, leaving me sitting on the bumper. The radio inside the ambulance clicked on by itself. Static. Then a familiar voice, syrupy and cheerful. "Good morning, valued employee. Congratulations on your promotion." I froze. The voice continued. "Sunset Kingdom. Thanks you for your dedication. Effective immediately, you are now night manager. Please report for duty at dusk." The radio popped and died. I threw the water bottle as hard as I could into the crater. My hands were shaking. I wanted to run, to scream, to deny everything, but then I noticed my wrist. The old laminated badge I'd worn my first night, the one that said Temp Tech, was different now. The letters shimmered like heat distortion. They rearranged themselves before my eyes. Night Manager. A faint hum filled the air, low and pulsing. The same sound the carousel made before it started spinning. The ground trembled beneath my boots. A firefighter shouted, "Move back! It's collapsing." But it wasn't collapsing. It was breathing. The dirt shifted outward in slow waves, and from the deepest part of the crater came that calliope waltz again, warped, slow, and impossibly loud for something buried underground. The others didn't seem to hear it. They just kept talking, oblivious, while the air grew thick with the smell of burnt sugar and ozone. I stumbled backward until I hit the guardrail. My pulse hammered. The sun was sliding behind the clouds, the sky bruising purple. Something shimmered in the smoke. Shapes, arches, spires, neon letters half-formed. The park was rebuilding itself. Bentley's voice whispered beside my ear, though no one stood there. "You can't quit, kid. Not anymore. The park always reopens. Someone has to keep it running." I turned. For half a second I saw him. Transparent, glowing faint blue. Half of his face still human. the other half stitched with flickering light bulbs. Then he was gone. The carousel music grew louder. The burned ground cracked open, and a single pole rose from the ash. A horse's head jutted from the top, its painted eye blinking once. A voice echoed across the empty lot. "Sunset Kingdom welcomes you back. The guests will arrive soon." I backed toward the highway. My truck was still parked on the shoulder, miraculously untouched by fire. The keys were inside, dangling from the ignition. I climbed in, started it, and floored it toward town. In the rearview mirror, the smoke shifted. The park's gates were reforming. Black iron, glowing red letters flickering to life. Sunset Kingdom, open forever. And underneath, newly carved in steel, Night Manager, Justin. I drove until the sign disappeared behind the hills, until the music faded. I thought I'd escaped, but when I got home and killed the engine, the radio inside the truck clicked on. No key, no power. The same cheerful voice, smooth as ever. "Clock in soon, Justin. The rides won't run themselves." My reflection in the windshield smiled back at me. Too wide, too glossy, and wearing a name tag that glowed in the dark. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear the faint sound of carousel music bleeding through the walls. The kind of sound that didn't come from speakers. It came from somewhere under the floorboards. When I finally turned on my phone, there was a new contact listed under favorites. Park HQ. I didn't put it there. I ignored it. It called anyway. The ringtone wasn't my ringtone. It was the parade theme, cheerful and wrong. I let it ring out, heart-hammering, and when I checked my voicemail later, all I heard was a single whisper. "You're late, manager." I drove 30 miles out of town that night, trying to convince myself the crater had filled in. But when I reached the ridge, the park was there, again. Reassembled like nothing had ever happened. The ride spun. The Ferris wheel glowed red against the clouds. The entrance gate gleamed as if newly painted, and hanging under the arch was a fresh banner. "Grand reopening tonight." The air smelled of popcorn and ozone. Somewhere in the distance, laughter echoed, high-pitched, overlapping, too many voices at once. I should have turned around. Instead, I parked by the gate and grabbed the crowbar from my truck. Inside the park, everything looked alive. The lights burned bright, the pavement was clean, even the trash cans gleamed. It was like walking into a photograph from 30 years ago. Except, there were no people, just shadows in motion. They looked like families. Silhouettes pushing strollers, kids holding balloons, lovers sharing cotton candy. All transparent, all smiling. And when I walked past, every head turned toward me in perfect unison. The PA system clicked on. "Attention guests! Sunset Kingdom welcomes our new manager. Please give him a warm round of applause." The shadows started clapping, slowly, in sync. The sound echoed off the rides, hollow and endless. I gripped the crowbar tighter. "I'm not staying," I said. The voice on the speakers chuckled. "Oh, Justin, we don't keep you. We become you." The lights flared, then dimmed. The carousel started spinning again, faster than before. The horses moved in perfect rhythm, and on each one I saw a rider, ghostly figures wearing old uniforms, maintenance staff, ticket takers, janitors, and front and center on the lead horse was Bentley. He looked younger, fresh uniform, clean smile. His eyes found me as the carousel spun past. "Someone has to keep the lights on," he mouthed. I stepped toward the breaker shed, the same one where I'd started my first shift. The rules were still taped to the box, but they'd changed. Operational Night Protocol, Rev 7. Power every zone at dusk. Welcome the guests. Never close. Never leave. Never stop smiling. Underneath was a handwritten note in fresh ink. "Manager, sign below to confirm your eternal employment." The ground rumbled. The shadow guests gathered behind me, silent, waiting. The air tasted of burnt sugar and static. I looked at the crowbar, then at the switch. Maybe I couldn't destroy the park, but I could kill the lights. I jammed the crowbar into the main breaker and yanked. Sparks flew. The world went white. The shadows screamed and dissolved. The ride stopped mid-spin. The Ferris wheel lights shattered into dust. The music warped and died. When the smoke cleared, I stood in the dark. No carousel, no crowd, no Bentley. Just me, and the faint hum of power still crawling under the soil. Then the breaker box flickered on again by itself. The lights of the park reignited, one by one. The PA whispered softly, like a lover at my ear. "Good work, manager." Shift complete. "See you tomorrow night." I stumbled backward, laughing and crying at once. The neon gate glowed behind me, bright as hellfire. Sunset Kingdom. Open forever. The ground vibrated beneath my boots, like the heartbeat of something that refused to die. I turned toward the highway, crowbar in hand, and for a brief second I thought I saw my reflection in a cracked mirror by the ticket booth. Same uniform, same badge, different face. A permanent smile, stretched wide and glossy. And behind me, the park's lights winked once, like it was saying goodnight. But the sign didn't say closed. It said, "See you tomorrow." And from deep beneath the ground, faint but rising, the carousel music started again.